We'll move on to Christine.
Hello, everyone. I'm ChristineMarieGeorge. I just want to do a sound check to make sure you're able to hear me clearly before I start.
We got you.
All right. So I'm an associate professor at Johns Hopkins, and my work focuses on partnering with communities to design, implement, and evaluate participatory interventions to reduce environmental exposures. And so today it's my pleasure to present on our collaboration for the Strong Heart Water Study, which was a multi-sectoral approach which focused on reducing arsenic exposure in partnership with American Indian communities. And so the rationale behind this work is that globally there's over 100 million people exposed to elevated arsenic in drinking water. And in North America, in the United States, is estimated to be 2 million. So 2 million individuals exposed to arsenic above the Environmental Protection Agency guideline of 10 micrograms per liter. And this is typically naturally occurring, and it predominantly impacts private well users. And so private well users are not regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. So the onus is on the well user to ensure that their water is arsenic safe. And so this map I show here is from USGS, and it's showing the distribution of arsenic across the US. So the areas that are in orange and red are areas where the arsenic concentrations exceed the EPA guideline of 10 micrograms per liter. So you can see the Four Corners area has many areas with elevated arsenic, where more than a quarter are exceeding the EPA guideline, as well as Texas, Maine, and New Hampshire, and also in the Great Plains area, where we partner with American Indian nations. And so the circles that are here are where the Strong Heart Water Study communities are located. And so the Strong Heart Study is a long-standing longitudinal cohort study which focuses on identifying risk factors for cardiovascular diseases among American Indian communities. And so as part of this work, urine and blood samples are collected in partnership with the communities. And it allowed for an opportunity to look at the health impacts of arsenic in drinking water on the health of these communities. And so the biomarker that was used was urine. And so urine is a biomarker of arsenic exposure. And it was found that individuals that were part of the study that had chronic arsenic exposure, that this was associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer mortality, diabetes, and kidney disease. And so this was the opportunity to really learn, or for the community to learn, about what the environmental exposure to arsenic was causing within their community. And so based on this work, a partnership was set forth with these communities and led to funding from the National Institute of Health. And we also received funding from Rotary International to develop and evaluate participatory interventions to reduce arsenic exposure, and in partnership with these American Indian communities. And this was in the Great Plains area, the Americas. And so going on to our multi-sectorial approach. So why is a multi-sectorial approach needed for arsenic mitigation? And so arsenic exposure is really a multifaceted issue that is caused by many levels of influence. So for example, at the tribal level, does the tribal government have arsenic mitigation policies? How does water rights influence people's access to safe drinking water? At the community level, the very first step in obtaining arsenic safe water is to know whether your well has arsenic or not. And in many areas in the communities we partner with, they're rather remote. And so it's challenging to find access to water arsenic testing. So what type of multi-sectorial approaches can be implemented to ensure access to water arsenic testing? In addition, at the household level, if people have elevated arsenic, what type of mitigation options are available? How can we ensure the sustainability of approaches that are implemented? And then at the individual level, what's very important is people's preferences related to water, particularly the aesthetic qualities of water. We've had circumstances where households had access to the municipal water supply, which was arsenic safe. However, they chose not to use those sources because they didn't like the taste of chlorine in the water, or the water wasn't the same as their well water, which they considered to be more fresh and clean. In addition, people's awareness at the individual level is really important. In our work that we've done in partnership with communities, sometimes community members report that boiling water reduces arsenic exposure. And because arsenic is a heavy metal, it actually boiling concentrates it. So it's important to understand people's awareness and then partner with communities to design interventions targeting that. And so that led to our multi-sectoral partnership, which is led by Missouri Briggs Industries Research Incorporated, which is an American Indian owned and run research entity in the Great Plains. In addition, we partner with the tribal government, which includes the Water Resource Department and Utility, which provide valuable information on historical data on arsenic that's within the area, as well as technical expertise on mitigation options. And we also partner with the Tribal Housing Authority, which led the installation of the arsenic mitigation technologies within the households and had pre-existing social ties with many of the households in the community. In addition, we partnered with Indian Health Service. And so Indian Health Service provided technical expertise with selection of the arsenic mitigation technology, as well as the financial support for the installation of the arsenic removal devices. And we were able to identify a local laboratory that performed the water arsenic testing. And then ourselves as the academic partners, we supported communities in designing studies to be able to evaluate the needs of the community, as well as to evaluate the program that they developed and implemented. And so here I show some photos of the work that was done as part of our multi-sectorial collaboration. And so we did community workshops where community members, which included private well users, health promoters, elders in the community, those working within tribal government, as well as individuals from Indian Health Service came together to discuss the arsenic issue within the community and how community resources could be leveraged to design approaches to mitigate this arsenic exposure. And so this included prioritization of water-related challenges within the community. And so a very important challenge was that when communities did have access to testing, that when the results were communicated to them, they weren't understanding them fully. So they wanted more clear communication of results and aligning with that, more health promotion and awareness. So they wanted education around what arsenic was and how it could be impacting the health of individuals within the community. At the same time, for intervention development within community workshops, there were discussions around the communication channels for delivering arsenic mitigation programs. And so community members voted and had preferences towards using newspapers, videos, radio, PSA, and in addition to door-to-door health promotion by promoters. And so collecting this information really informed the design of the intervention for these communities that had elevated arsenic. And so now I'll go into the programs that were implemented. There was a community water arsenic testing program set up, and this was led by Missouri Briggs. And through this program, health promoters within the community tested a total of 552 private wells. And it was found that nearly a third of them had elevated arsenic. So this just shows the extent of the arsenic problem within these communities. And so the communities requested that maps be made so that they can see areas that were at high risk. And so this led to us as the academic partners using GIS to design maps that were shared with the community on the distribution of arsenic. And so when a household was found to have elevated arsenic, health promoters delivered the result to households. They called them. They also sent a mailing that provided information about what this finding meant and the mitigation options that were available for households. A point of use arsenic removal device was installed in households that were interested. And so here I show an example of the model. And so it was a multi-pure, this was an absorptive media filtration device. And so there's a filter cartridge that's in this metal canister that's under the sink, which then provides filtered water, arsenic safe water through this faucet. And it's recommended that this filter is changed every 12 months. In addition, households still have access to the kitchen faucet for tasks such as washing their hands, since arsenic and water does not pass through the skin, as well as through washing dishes. So the reason why the filter faucet wasn't used for all household tasks is because of the cost associated with changing the cartridge. And so if there was very high usage of water through the cartridge, it would make the intervention much more expensive for households. And so again, through the multi-sectoral partnership with the community, tribal government, as well as federal government, academic partners, Strong Heart Water Study interventions were developed, which included videos of community members giving testimonials about why they decided to use arsenic safe water, the arsenic problem within their community, and elders talked about the importance of always both drinking and cooking with arsenic safe water. We also use Facebook as a means to deliver the videos as well as reminders to use the filter faucet. You can see YouTube videos were created as well as text messages and phone calls. And for our intensive portion of our intervention, home visits were also conducted by health promoters. And so as I mentioned earlier, these cartridges don't last forever and they need to be changed. And so as part of the intervention, there was a instructional video created where a community member showed households how to change the filter cartridge. And so you have to open this metal canister and then replace the cartridge inside. And it was recommended that this be done every 12 months. And so households were called to remind them to change their cartridge. So now I'll go into our program evaluation. We were really excited about the findings from this. And so we followed households for a period of 2 years where they were provided the arsenic removal device and the health promotion. And we found that over our 2-year follow-up period, that 93% of the filter faucet samples that were collected, these were the water samples, had arsenic that was below the EPA guidelines. So 93% of the filters were effective in removing arsenic down to the 10 microgram per liter guideline. And this figure here on the right is just showing in the first box, it's the kitchen faucet samples. And the y-axis here is the water arsenic concentration, with the line here being the EPA cutoff at 10 micrograms per liter. So you can see that almost all the kitchen samples were above the EPA guideline. And then once they were filtered, almost all of them, except for 3, were below the EPA guideline. So we learned a lot of valuable lessons through implementing this project. We learned that our multi-sectoral approach for program implementation allowed us to identify challenges that occurred and to be able to overcome those challenges along the way. Typically for arsenic mitigation projects, filters are just given to households with no type of reinforcement over time. And that really doesn't ensure the sustainability of the approach that's implemented. In addition, we learned the value of having community promoters that were real tribal members that were delivering the health communication, as well as leveraging existing social ties in the community. So having Indian Health Service partner with the tribal water utility to install the arsenic removal devices. In this way, a person from the community was providing the arsenic mitigation option and able to provide information on maintenance over time. And so that concludes my presentation today. And I would like to again acknowledge our study partners at Missouri Briggs, at Johns Hopkins, at Columbia, at MedStar, Indian Health Service, and also our environmental consultants within the community. So with that, I would be happy to address any questions that you have. Thank you. I think the audio may be muted. I'm not able to hear anything.
Got it?
Yep.
I'm mentioning Kelly Andre's poster that we have on display down in the main room for people who wanted to get into more details on the statistics and how you separated out the influence of your intervention. And we appreciate this collaboration with you. Look forward to more of that. But do we have questions in the audience here, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lynn. We really appreciate your support of our project as well.
Well, it's been modest, but you're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Fatu, and I would like to know if you are collaborating with the universities at the Johns Hopkins University. If you are collaborating with students, interns.
Yeah, so we have several students, including Kelly, that Lynn just mentioned. She was a master's student that worked closely with our group. And so I work really closely with students at Hopkins. And I also have 5 doctoral students as well. So very interested in partnering or working together with students that are interested in interventions to reduce environmental exposures.
I would like to know how, if there's any advice from you about how one can go about getting some interns from the university at the graduate level for different things, not necessarily water. Water is a part of our program, but other things like food production, agriculture, or also income generation activities.
So if you reach out to me, I'd be happy to talk to you. I actually direct the health equity and social justice concentration for the Doctorate of Public Health program at Johns Hopkins. And we currently have 100 doctoral students now in that program. And there's really the range of interest. We have some students that are interested in the food system, as you mentioned, other students that are interested in more water related issues. So really the range. So I'd be happy to talk to you more about that. And we actually have an open house on Monday, an in-person one. And then we have a virtual open house on the 28th of October. So I can send you the information for that.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Terrific. I might mention that in the back and forth of recruiting Christine to talk about her work,
yeah,
she spent a lot of time, I think, recently in the Congo working on a project. So it's not just the American Indian topic that she is relating to.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been working in Congo for the past 7 years, and I also have worked and lived in Bangladesh for the past 14 years. And so I'm really interested. My work is focused on partnering with communities in different settings globally to develop wash interventions to reduce exposures. It looks like Benjamin has a question.
Thank you, Prof. Doc, for the opportunity. I just want to add, I think when just want to add if you also have opportunity in energy access, like solar PV, heating system or something, aside the wash sector for graduate students.
I'm sorry, Benjamin, I may have missed what you said. Can you say it one more time, please?
Oh, okay, all right. I'm just adding to what has already been asked by Fatu. Just adding if you have opportunity also in energy access, eco energy access, right, outside the wash sector.
So our doctoral.
If you want to get in touch, how can we get in touch? Your email or, I mean.
Yeah, so I'll write my email in the chat. And so for our health equity and social justice program, it's a range of interests. It's more targeting health inequities within communities, and energy access is definitely an area where there's health inequities that needs to be addressed. It looks like Marnie has a question also that she wrote in the chat about technologies. And so technologies for potential use. And so that's always a challenging area, right? To select the technology that suits the needs of households and communities the best. And so, for example, in the context of arsenic mitigation for filters, we could have used reverse osmosis, which uses membrane filtration to remove arsenic exposure. But through our work in partnership with communities, we realized that reverse osmosis systems really remove the minerals from the water, really strip the taste of the water that people are used to. And so when those type of devices are implemented, they often have low uptake because people don't like the aesthetic qualities of the devices. And also another important consideration is the hydrogeological conditions in the area. So for example, if you have high phosphate or if you have a high iron, thinking about potential water quality parameters that could interfere with the efficacy of your arsenic removal device. Oh, so I see you said engineering team. So I'm actually an environmental engineer. I was trained at Stanford in environmental engineering. And we also partnered with the Indian Health Service, their branch that focuses on engineering. And also Dr. Kellogg Schwab, an engineer at Hopkins. So yes, the engineering part is a very important aspect of our selection of our arsenic removal device.
All set? Christine, thank you very much. Could you put your link to your online thing for the 28th in the chat box? Because I think there's a lot of interest here. And I want to mention also, as part of your organization, the Center for Indigenous Health has updated their name, and they're very active in conducting studies and providing assistance to American Indians and I think internationally indigenous communities. So people may want to Google their webpage. It's very
And I can put that in the chat also.
That would be great.
Thank you very much. Wow.
Thank you.
Nice. Glad to have you here. Okay, I think you can go bike riding now.
And Christine will be sure to send those chat links along. Thank you.
So I put all the links into the chat. And like I said, if anyone else has questions, they're free to reach out to me. I'll put my email address right here. And as I mentioned, in terms of doctoral students, we're very much looking for doctoral students for our doctorate of public health program. We're really proud that 42% of our doctoral students in our program are underrepresented minorities. So we have a very diverse doctoral student population in our program.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.